Although more people seem to be drinking less alcohol, so in effect, less alcohol is being consumed, liver disease seems to be rising. And this is very concerning. And I'm going to be sharing with you some data that you probably haven't seen before, looking at what is happening in almost every cohort in age group across the pandemic period. This is really important information. So let's just show you why I'm doing this focus. And the reason I'm talking about this now is coming up in about a week and a half, why toxic liver disease is rising across every age group. The link is in the description if you want to join me. You have to understand, I've been doing these presentations now for some time. And what I'm trying to do is tie the statistical evidence, meaning the changes and the trajectory changes, to what I think is the likely reason. Now, I'm explaining and exploring what my focus is around the pandemic, but the point is that it is occurring. Some people may not agree with what I say, but they need to give a logical explanation. So here is what caught my attention, and I was talking with Dr. Shetty when it jumped out at me. When I looked across the pandemic, this is 186 million NHS hospital admissions. If you want to take a look at that, there is a link in the description, and I've broken it down into all the cohorts. Now, watch carefully as to why I'm talking about this. 0 to 17, 94% increase in fibrosis and 79% toxic liver disease. Go back. 18 to 29, toxic liver disease, 97% increase. If I go to 30 to 44, again, toxic liver disease, 134% increase. If I go to 45 to 59, again, you have toxic liver disease, 137%. All age groups, 171% toxic liver disease, number two in 60 to 74. Above 75, toxic liver disease, 156% increase across the pandemic. These are some horrific numbers when it comes to what is going on. As I said, if you want to see this kind of data, go in the link, you'll get access to a dashboard giving you some of it. If you want the full data set across multiple conditions for which liver disease will be broken down in more detail as well, please go to the course dashboard where I have all the information. Where we are at the moment is that we are dealing with a situation that very few people not only don't acknowledge, don't understand. And so what caught my attention is this article from April 2025. Increase in alcohol deaths in England, an acute crisis. Persistent higher rate of alcohol deaths since the pandemic is an acute crisis requiring urgent action. The natural assumption is that this is because of alcohol. But the fact that this is rising even in children suggests that we may not be looking carefully at what exactly is going on. So what's concerning them is that when you look at the data, and this is taken from the alcohol profile, short statistical commentary, December of 2024, when you roll down here, you can see the trajectory going up since 2020. And the presumption was that people are drinking more in the pandemic, and so therefore we're seeing a rise in liver disease. That's a presumption, because when you look at what is happening, say for instance in the US, and we saw a similar kind of trend in the UK, look at this. US drinking rate at new low as alcohol concerns surge. People are worried about this. And when they looked at this here, this is the Gallup research, Americans' use of alcoholic beverages since 1939. Look carefully at this. This is going by year, 1945, all the way to 2025. 54%. It is the lowest it has ever been in 2025, all the way back to the lowest point, 55% in 1958, 56% in 1989, 54% in the United States. People cannot tolerate their alcohol anymore. Nobody's asking why. Again, in terms of the UK, we find in the BMJ highlighting this point, trends in the use of alcohol-free, low alcoholic drinks. And you can see here when they looked at the results, the proportion reporting the use of alcohol-free and low alcohol drinks to reduce alcohol consumption increased from 35% in 2020 to 43.9% in up to 2024 or 2025 when they were looking at this. Everybody is trying to drink less because they can't tolerate the alcohol. This is what is happening. If you ask your friends and ask your family, they are going to tell you that when they drink now, it makes them feel unwell. They never used to feel like this, and they think it is just age. What I'm telling you is that this is far more significant than people aging. There is a rise in liver damage across the population in every single age group. The problem is that nobody quite fully understands what in the world is going on. And as I said, if you want to hear my analysis of it in more detail, please click on the link. There's some free tickets. They tend to go quite quickly. Join me as we do this on Thursday, the 7th of May, to look in more detail at this. What you have to be doing here, you must not take this as just interesting information, because this information I'm sharing with you doesn't get out to a lot of people. In the past, it used to. Now the algorithm doesn't like this information, so it doesn't. You need to take this to your family and friends because they need to understand why their behavior is changing, and they need to then understand how can they mitigate some of these issues, because if you don't understand it, you can't mitigate it. Across the board, as I said, everybody is drinking less. And even when you look at the drink aware patterns in the UK, up to 2022, it seemed to be rising, following a similar pattern to the US. And again, showing you this here, in 2022, it was 67%, had gone up from 60%. And this was the highest it had been since 2010. So yes, people are drinking more, but then you see this rapid fall off for 3 years. People just couldn't handle the alcohol. And so therefore, this is what is happening across the board. But it still means that livers are at risk. Even though you may be drinking less, there is still a risk to your liver. You don't want to lose it. And this is why it's so important for people to understand the mechanisms that are likely to be happening. Before I finish out here, this was taken from a recent presentation. And at that time, I was looking at liver disease and some of the mechanisms around it. And I'll be looking in more detail, as I said. The liver is quite a remarkable organ. And when you understand just how important it is, and I'll show you some of the slides from that presentation, when you understand how important it is, you'll realize why this is so critical. This is just showing you about the metabolism of drugs in the liver, why it's so important. And this actually protects your body, even though it breaks down many of the medications that you are taking. It treats them largely like a toxin. And the things that are good and bad for your liver, they're bad things, some of the pollutants that cause liver injury, some of the foods that can protect your liver. These are all the kinds of things that we will be talking about in that presentation. This is important information, and it is something that I think everybody needs to know. Simple point here about the structure of the liver. It is beautiful, remarkable system, the way how the blood vessels bring blood through, and the blood has to filter through these lobules and then come back out of the liver. So this is how it filters everything coming from the intestines and makes sure it protects your body from it. When this fails, everything is at risk. And so, as I said, just a reminder to everyone, in case you didn't quite understand it, alcohol intake is at the lowest level, certainly in the United States, 54% it has ever been. And I think we're seeing this across the board. But then what is happening is that across the board, in every age group, you are seeing an increase in liver-related pathology. And as a final point, in case you joined late, this is what the numbers show across all age groups. Take a look again. I've broken it down by cohort, 0 to 17, fibrosis, toxic liver disease at the top. If you go back 18 to 29, toxic liver disease, 97% increase. 30 to 44%, toxic liver disease, 134% increase. If you look 45 to 59, toxic liver disease, 137% increase. 60 to 64, 171% increase. And above 75, toxic liver disease, 156% increase. All age groups, significant increase in a way that we don't fully understand. I'm going to be here to try and give you some kind of scientific, logical framework to think about, and critically, what you can do to minimize your risk. Look in the description below. All the links are there. Look forward to having you in this ongoing discussion. Have a great evening.